Have you ever heard about a concept called human species? No. Well, that makes sense given the fact that during the process of learning we are taught that there are actually human races, not species. Have you ever wondered why? In this educative video I will show you that human races are actually human species. This is not a conspiracy theory and I will not try to wash your brain here. All the information you will get will be given to you for your sole interpretation. I'm sure you are aware of the term species, however, you might not necessarily focus on that knowledge. Just to remind you, I will show you two simple comparisons, including 4 examples. Let's start with elephants and tigers. Both tigers and elephants are members of the Animalia kingdom, which basically means they're animals. They're also members of the same class, called Mammalia, which means they're mammals. And that's the end of their similarities. Tigers belong to the family Felidae, which means they're cats, and elephants belong to the family Elephantidae, which means they are just elephants. But we don't need any scientific knowledge to conclude that they're completely different animals, and completely different species. But let's move on to another example. Let's compare tigers and lions. They're both animals and mammals, just as elephants, but they also have more things in common. They belong to the order Carnivora, which means that both tigers and lions are carnivores and feed mainly on meat. They also belong to the same Felidae family, which means they're cats, but the similarities go even further. Both tigers and lions belong to genus Panthera, which means they're big, carnivore cats. They are, however, absolutely different species. As you can see, there are numerous categories of the scientific classification. We can easily distinguish fish from mammals or snakes from birds. As we move on the classification framework, we can also easily distinguish tigers from lions or black bears from polar bears. All we have to know is that they're different species. But here comes the question, what about humans? Humans belong to the Animalia, which means we are animals. We also belong to the class Mammalia, which means we are mammals, just like dogs and tigers. But at this point our similarities to cats stop, because we belong to primates, which means we are more similar to lemurs. We also belong to the family of Hominidae, which means we are more similar to orangutans and gorillas than lemurs. From that point the similarities end. Humans belong to species called Homo sapiens. And all the people in the world are categorized as Homo sapiens, which means all the people in the world belong to the same species. Actually, humans are the only animals which are divided into a single species. There are over 7 billion people in the world, and we all belong to the same species. There are just over 3,000 tigers in the world and they're divided into several species, and more than 7 billion people, all belonging to the same species. Humans are actually categorized as races, not species. We are told we are all the same, and the DNA differences between, for example, black and white people are so unimportant that we cannot categorize black and white male as separate species. Let's analyze the differences. I will use the example of black and white people just to keep things simple. Number 1. Skin color. Black people and white people have a different skin color. That's obvious. We don't have to analyze that. Number 2. Facial differences. Take a look at those pictures of random people belonging to many different races. If you look at your race, you can easily spot the differences, but if you look at other races, is it that simple? Yeah, some of you will probably say that we are all equal and look the same, as Homo sapiens. So I will give you a task. Look at those 3 pictures for 10 seconds, and at the end of this video I will ask you to describe as many details of each of the persons as you can, like you're at the police station trying to give the best accurate picture of the person you saw committing a crime. I guarantee you that you will give at least 5 details of the person of your race, and only 1 detail of the persons of other races. That will be their skin color. Why is that? Is it because you belong to a particular species and can easily differentiate people of your race, and members of all other races are just intruders, so all you have to spot is that they don't fit to your species? Well, You have to make your own conclusions. Number 3. Geography and climate. It's no surprise that 3,000 years ago white people lived in what we now call Europe, Indian people in the Americas, Asian people in today's Asia, and black people in today's Africa. Because all the species lived in different climates, they all developed different physical attributes, for example skin color, which depends on amount of melanin, and the amount of melanin depends on how strong the sun is shining in particular regions. There are also other variables, like eye color, eye physical attributes, facial and body hair, and many others. Okay, but we don't have the whole day for analyzing different species, do we? Let's move on to a more interesting part, which is why we actually should refer to human races to be human species. First of all, let's analyze what races are, and I will use Wikipedia definitions here, just to show you I'm not making anything up. First definition, race. According to Wikipedia, race is an informal rank in the taxonomic hierarchy. Focus on the word informal. We've been taught that there are human races. The races are informal. What a complete piece of ridiculous informal science. But let's move on to the definition of human race. According to Wikipedia, a human race is a concept based on combinations of shared physical traits, ancestry, genetics, and social or cultural traits. What is also mentioned in the Wikipedia's main part of the definition is that such grouping lacks a firm basis in modern biology. Well, if there's no proof for races in biology, then why the heck should we even take any information about races to be true? For me, if something has no basis in science, it's questionable. The reason for that there still exists a concept called human races is that its basis are complete lies, and I will show you why. Lie number 1 is the theory that humans belong to the same species because we can interbreed, which means that for instance a black person can have children with a white person. That's a complete lie, because actually all the animals which belong to the same genus can interbreed and have offspring with different species. Black bears can have children with polar bears, because they both belong to genus Ursus, and pet dogs can have children with wild wolves, because they belong to genus Canis. Need proof for that? Google wolf dog, which is a hybrid of a dog and a wolf, or a liger, which is a hybrid of a lion and a tiger. It's possible, because it's actually genuine genetics. I just proved you that different species can interbreed. If you don't believe me, you can verify it by using Google. A lie number 2 is that all healthy humans have exactly 46 chromosomes, and that makes all of us the same species. Some scientists claim that horses have 64 chromosomes, and donkeys have 62 chromosomes, yet they can interbreed, and that makes donkeys and horses separate species. Well, again, dogs, coyotes and wolves all have 78 chromosomes. They can interbreed and they're different species. The same applies to bears and many other animals. A lie number 3, and probably the most important lie, is that the differences in human DNA are so unimportant and small that we cannot refer to various human races to be human species. To be honest, that's a very strong thesis, but it's a lie. Well, it's hard to answer that lie in simple words. I wanted to provide you with some scientific data from Google, but the first results were about scientists being fired for claiming that black and white people have different mitochondrial DNA. So I had to dig deeper, because I really wanted to find the dogs versus wolves and blacks versus whites examples, and here it is. DNA of dogs and wolves is similar in 99.96%. This is legitimate data. You can Google it. What about humans? It is estimated to be around 99.9%. However, no one dares to analyze and compare two pieces of DNA of different races in more detail, because it's immoral and unethical. The ones who try usually lose their jobs. Now, let's expand our comparison. On the left side we'll compare black bears and polar bears, and on the right side we'll analyze black people and white people. As you can see, all four species have different skin, or fur color, which is their main difference. Moreover, All the four species originate from various geographical regions. They have different feeding patterns, different physical attributes, slightly different DNA patterns. So why do we call different bears bear species, and different humans human races? Imagine what would happen if, out of sudden, it was announced that black people and white people are different species. I'm not saying anything about which species is worse and which is better, because we assume that at this level of our civilizational advancement we are all equal. So, what would happen? To answer that question you have to understand how all the species interact with each other. Tigers versus lions. Aggression. Black bears versus polar bears. Aggression. Dogs versus wolves. Aggression. No matter what two separate species we compare, they present aggressive behavior against each other. So now let's make a guess. What would happen if all humans realized that there are human species, not human races? The answer could be racial wars, and we've already experienced that throughout the history. For example, during American Civil Wars or the Second World War. Some 150 years ago white people perceived Negroes and Indians to be of non-human species. You've watched the movies, so you know how it was, and how it ended. Do you remember the task I gave you? Try to give at least 5 details of the people presented to you earlier on. Do you see that you can give a lot of description of the person of your race and not so many details regarding representatives of other races? I will not make any conclusions just to not sound like brainwashing. In this video I presented you facts, which prove that there are actually human species, not races. It's up to you what conclusions you get of that. I believe that we all deserve to have access to legitimate and true scientific knowledge, not informal science or science without basis. This video has been provided to you by the community of the followers of the Sun. To learn more, visit sunprophecy.info or followersofthesun.com.